I used to think nothing could surprise me after midnight in Gray Otter, West Virginia. Fridays brought drunk fights behind the Waffle House. Summers brought calls about bears tipping trash cans on River Road, and storms brought power lines snapping like whips across blacktop. The radio would hiss, the fluorescent lights would buzz, and the town would roll on. But the first time I heard the second clock tick, the radio went silent. I was alone. That night swing shift had left, and the trainee was out sick. Sheriff Baker was on patrol along Route 52. Deputy Morales was cruising the lake houses, and fire was bedded down unless lightning woke them. The center smelled like burnt coffee and pine sol. I had my headset on, my fingers resting on the CAD keys when the first call came through. Unknown number, no caller ID, no GIS dot. Just a flicker on the console and a voice like mine, only thinner, frayed at the edges. "Lila," it said, "don't look at the second clock." I laughed without humor. "Who is this?" "You can't prank call 911. A breath. It wasn't there when you sat down. It is there now. Do not look at it. If you do, it will see you." I reached for the wall where the beat-up department clock hung above the supply cabinet. Its minute hand stuck at 12 after, like always. I felt the urge rising. Just swivel my chair. Confirm it was the only one. Tell some bored teenager to cut it out. But the air was wrong. The hum in the lights lifted like a held note. Somewhere in the building, a machine stopped humming, and the silence opened, big and hollow. "Who is this?" I asked again. "Me," the voice said. "You," the version who looked static crashed through my right ear. The line died. I stared at the console. My hand hovered over the hotline to Baker, then pulled back. I knew better than to spin co-workers up for nothing. But the silence pressed. Not empty expectant tick. I flinched hard enough to wheel my chair an inch. The sound came from behind me, from the hallway that led past the break room to the rear exit. The same old exit sign glowed its green rectangle. The same old dented metal door with the push bar. And on the wall above that door, where there had never been a clock in my 2 years of nights, a new one hung. Clean white face, black hands, no brand. The second hand jerked from mark to mark. Tick, double quotes, Baker. "Unit 1, I said, keeping my voice steady as I keyed the radio. "You got time for a station check?" His voice snapped back, warm and human, the way it always did. 10-4, Lila. "You need me to swing by? You sound off. Just making sure the radio's working." Forced a smile he couldn't see. "Stay safe." I was going to turn my chair just quick, just to prove I wasn't a child, when the second call came. Same thing, unknown, no GIs. I answered it on muscle memory. "Gray Otter, 911. What's your emergency?" A whisper threaded with sobs. Younger. This time, a boy, 7, maybe 8. "He's knocking," he said. "Who is? Are you safe? What's your address?" "Don't open," the boy breathed. "He'll use your name if he needs to." The line filled with tapping 3 knocks, spaced exactly, like a met, RONOME, knock, knock, knock. The second hand jumped. Tick. I cut the line cold, which you're not supposed to do, but my hand wasn't listening to training anymore. The radio hissed to itself. Rain started needling the roof. I told myself to get up, take a lap, check the side door, run the list of tasks you run when the hour gets thin. But my chair felt welded to the floor. To the right of my console, the CAD email icon flashed. I clicked. A message with no sender, just a subject line. Subject, Keep the line, Alavitha body, was a block of text written like my own incident. Note short, clean, present tense. It read, at 1:13 the knocks begin. At 2:26 the power flickers. At 3:13 the voice outside will say the sheriff's name and use yours to make you open. Do not, it is not him. If you look at the second clock, it will learn you. If you speak your full name while looking at it, it will wear you. Keep one line open. Keep talking, fill the dead air. I stared at the times. 12:58 a.m. 15 minutes in the future. Very funny. I whispered to the empty room, because saying anything felt less alone than silence. The time crept. The storm softened. My eyes kept trying to drag themselves to the hallway. I kept them on the console until my vision blurred. At 1:13, the first knock came from the rear exit. Precisely measured, precisely human. Knock, knock, knock. I swallowed. Baker, Unit 1, do you copy? Go ahead. You anywhere near the station? Negative. I'm passing the old feed mill. Why? Just wondered. Another knock. 3 again. I told myself it was thermal expansion, the building settling, some real thing. I stood, legs, pins and needles, and walked to the break room. I ran the faucet. I rinsed the stale coffee out of my mug. I kept my body between the hallway and my line of sight, like a child afraid to see under a bed. The second hand clicked dot at 2:26. The lights dimmed. The exit sign burned brighter, making the hallway a flat green tunnel. The generator coughed, then steadied. The CAD program stuttered, then drew itself back together. The radio was quiet enough to hear the rain not falling, the absence of it. My phone, my personal phone, which I never took out during shift. I didn't remember pulling it from my bag, but it was in my hand, screen bright. A text from an unknown number. The preview line was just 5 words. Don't use your own name. The back door creaked, not the sound of a handle turning. The sound the metal makes when a lot of weight leans on it from the outside, and the top edge of the door rubs the frame. Knock, knock, knock. I returned to my desk and placed my headset on carefully, like that mattered. I opened a new CAD event, record event type. Suspicious person at dispatch and left the narrative pane blinking. The cursor a tiny pulse. Grey Otter 911, I said softly, irrationally, to the empty room. What's your emergency? The phone lit, unknown number. My finger hit answer before the thought formed. Grey Otter 911. What's your Lila? Sheriff Baker's voice, but half a breath off, like he'd recorded the word and played it back slow. It's Baker. At the back, sweetheart. Power must have glitched the card reader. Mind keying it for me. Relief burned so bright it broke into anger. Use the call sign, Sheriff, I said, because that was our habit, our little joke. Say the code phrase to prove you're you. It wasn't really a code phrase. It was just something old-timers in Grey Otter said when they came in off a bad night. I'm about to eat all the stale donuts in this place. Baker always added 10-4 to that. He chuckled on the other side of the door. The sound was almost right. Almost exactly right. Open up, Lila. Say it. Silence. Then, perfectly, even 10-4. My mouth went dry. That wasn't the thing he needed to say, and if it had been him, he would have known. He wouldn't have said it like that, punched down and empty, like a phrase pulled from a cue card. I typed in the CAD. Narrative pane without looking at the letters. Person at back door mimicking. Sheriff. Declined code phrase. Holding perimeter. I keyed the radio. Unit 1, Baker, do you copy? Static. Then, faint, his real voice. Go ahead, 911, you're 20. Passing mile marker, 14. He sounded tired and bored, bone deep, normal. What's up? Nothing, I said, and it came out wrong. All good. The knocks did not come again. Whatever was outside leaned against the door and waited. The second clock ticked. I wondered how many honest little tests it took to put a person in the ground. How many times you could choose to do the normal, polite thing before the thing at the door learned every one of your tricks. I looked at the email again. Keep one line open. Fill the dead air. I opened another CAD incident. Blank. I dialed my own phone number on the admin line so it would ring and occupy one of the trunks. The line connected to nowhere, just a tone in my ear so soft I had to listen for it. I found myself talking under my breath, not to the recording, not to the clock, just to something that wasn't silence. I grew up in Putnam County, I said. Hot summers, hollers full of kudzu. My mother taught 3rd grade. I drove past the river every day and thought about leaving and never did. I laughed, that odd laugh that comes out sideways when you're holding something shut. My first week on nights, a guy called to ask if raccoons are protected under state law. I didn't know the answer. I told him to call the non-emergency line and he said this felt very emergent. The second hand moved. The thing at the door waited. The rain returned in a whisper. Somewhere around 3 o'clock. A new email slid into my inbox without notification. I don't know why I clicked it. Maybe the knowing that someone, somewhere in the future, had written to me. Maybe I was desperate for anyone to exist with me in the thin hours besides the door, and the clock, and the wrong voice. Subject: if he says your middle name, it is already INSID body. At 3:13, the voice will try again. It will say your middle. Named the way your father used to when he was unhappy. You will think, I haven't heard that in years, and you will want your father back so badly you will hurt. Do not touch the bar. Do not breathe toward the door. If you cry, cry quietly. I am begging you, Lila. There are more versions of us than we can stand, and every time one looks up when the second hand is on the 12, something walks around wearing her. Let me be the last one who looked. My middle name is June. My father said it exactly one way when I brought home a detention slip when I was 11. Lila June. Hard at the end of both words. A mountain at the end of a 2-lane road at 3:13. The knocks returned. Knock, 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 knock. Then soft, through the door, the voice said, Lila, June, honey, I know you're scared. Let me in. The grief landed. So heavy and clean that it felt like relief. Of course he was there. Of course I wasn't alone in this building with a ticking that built itself out of nothing. Of course Dad had found his way to the back door of the 911 center of a town he'd never visited in his life. 3 years after we put him in the ground on a cold March afternoon, I put my hand on the console so hard my knuckles went white. Dad, open up, baby, he said. You don't have to be afraid. Not anymore. I stood up. I took one step into the hallway and stopped because the air got colder, like stepping from sunlight into a walk-in freezer. The exit sign glowed, and the new clock glowed, too, its white face slick and bright. And before I could stop myself, my eyes jerked up and the hands were not where they should be. The second hand did not move. It pointed straight up at 12. The black paint of the minute hand wasn't paint. It was something that had the suggestion of hair. Not human hair. Finer, like the underside of a moth. The second hand jumped, tick, a. Pressure slid down the back of my skull like a palm. I felt myself begin to say my name, all three parts. The urge wasn't a thought. It was a lever inside my throat someone else was pulling. L. The admin line popped. A whisper came through the empty call to my own number, like the world had bent enough to make a connection it wasn't supposed to make. "Hold your breath," the whisper said. It was me again, ragged and breathless. "Say the sheriff's badge, number backward, instead." I didn't know Baker's badge number backward. I hadn't needed to, and my brain, flooded with cold and the bright blank of the clock face, grabbed at nothing but my hands typed in CAD 1,000 times a night. My fingers knew a pattern, my mouth didn't. I let my hands lift and trace the number above my keyboard. The digits surfaced in muscle memory. 3, 6, 1, I said, and the pressure stuttered, slid, eased. Behind the door, my father's voice got it wrong. "That's right, baby. That's my old fishing spot number, you remember?" It wasn't my father. It didn't know what the number was. It only knew I hadn't said my name, and it had to try another mask. I took one step back into the dispatch room. My eyes burned and watered, but I didn't wipe them. I sat and I placed my palms flat on the console and I breathed through my nose. Little quiet breaths, like I was hiding in a closet and a stranger creaked down the hall. "Baker," I said, voice steady somehow. "Do me a favor. Go for Unit 1. What's your 10 code for arriving on scene?" 1097, he said, comfortable, automatic. "You good? I will be." I typed, "If I say 1097, the room listens." I said it out loud, 1097. The second hand of the clock twitched, refused to move, then stuttered forward 1 mark and began its steady pulse again. Behind the door, my father laughed like a man who'd forgotten how and was furious to be learning again. The storm got its voice back. The radio came alive with morales pulling. A speeder on the bridge and Baker calling a plate. The coffee tasted like earth. The console lights looked like small towns seen from high above. I kept the admin line connected to my own number. I kept talking. I talked about nothing. I talked about my mother's 3rd grade class, hatching chicks in a borrowed incubator. I talked about the time a church group brought cupcakes to the station and one was decorated like an emergency cone. And I didn't eat it because it looked too much like actual equipment. I talked about the night I drove home and a deer bounded out of the trees, and I screamed and then started laughing because I'd made it through 12 hours of people's worst days, and that dumb white-tailed ghost was my breaking point at 4 o'clock. The new clock on the back wall wasn't there anymore. I didn't see it disappear. I stood to stretch, to breathe into muscles I'd kept tight for 3 hours. And when I glanced down the hall, there was only the exit sign and the old dent in the paint and the flat metal door. I didn't open it. Not then, not until Baker himself came through the front with a paper sack of gas station biscuits and the morning light behind him and said, "You look like you spent the night wrestling something that wasn't there. You ever notice a second clock back there?" I asked, keeping my voice light. He frowned. "Nope." "Why?" I shrugged. "Guess I'm due for a nap." I never told him. I never told anyone, but I wrote an email to myself and set it to delay send. I wrote it clean, like an incident report. I put the subject line in all caps so it would catch my eye if I ever needed it again. Subject, keep the line, Alave, included, the times, the knocks, the voice, the rule about the second clock and my middle name. and the most important line, typed twice, once like a dispatch note and once like a prayer. If I say 1097, the room listens. 10-90-7. I hit send. The system hiccuped, then accepted it. For 3 weeks, the nights were quiet. Then the trainee came back from sick leave, boyish face, Ohio State hoodie under his county polo. He sat in my chair for the first hour while I explained the CAD fields, the radio etiquettes, the things you don't say on air unless you want old-timers to radio check you for a week. His name was Ethan. He chewed gum too loud but listened. Well, asked good questions at 12:58 a.m. while I was showing him where we kept the stash of spare headsets. My inbox flashed with a new message that had no sender and no CC. Subject, keep the line. Alave didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew every line. Somewhere down the hall, a sound started, so soft Ethan didn't hear it. Tick. He looked past me, toward the rear exit. His smile faltered. What's that? He asked. Don't look, I said, too fast, and he blinked in confusion. The radio hissed. The rain paused. The building leaned into the thin hour. Knock, knock, knock. I put the headset in his hands and closed his fingers around the phone. I kept my voice level and my mouth kind. Rule 1, I said, meeting his eyes. If you ever hear 3 knocks spaced just so, you ignore the door. You keep one line open. You keep talking. You don't say your full name. You never look at a clock that wasn't there when you sat down. He laughed, a thin little startle. Of sound is this hazing. It's training. I let myself smile in a way I hoped would make him believe me. Say 1097 if you have to. The room listens. Another knock. Ethan flinched. Repeat after me, I said. I kept my voice gentle. 1097, he swallowed. 1097, the second hand ticked once and kept time. I picked up my own headset and sat down beside him. I opened a blank cat incident and left it blinking. I dialed my own number on the admin line and spoke into the quiet like someone was there to hear it, because in every version that mattered, there was. I started to talk about raccoons, and the room listened.